Sports, we all love it, but has racism been part of sports for a little too long? Something I've noticed all my life in being an athletic person and playing sports is that growing up, you tend to think that per position, there's a certain type of person that fits the narrative. For example, in American football, it's always a white QB. It's black cornerbacks and black wide receivers. But then the tight ends tend to be white tight ends. So again, is it just based on our genetics? Is it based on the types of positions we tend to like? Or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Something that I've noticed, and again, being a soccer player, is that the different types of leagues that are really successful are the European leagues. But where are they getting some of their best players? They're extracting from Africa. They're extracting them from South America. And they're bringing them to Europe. So in the previous years and years and years, it probably seemed like, this is where the talent's at, this is where the people who are doing all the work are at, so let's bring them over. But then when you bring them into the leagues to acclimate them, to make them part of the culture, the stereotypes, the scrutiny they get, even when it comes down to the England national team, when they had players, again, young black players, miss penalties, they were going bonkers on them. They were going crazy, saying racial stereotypes to them. But then when one of their star forwards, who's a white guy, missed a penalty terribly, it was a lot quieter. They weren't as mad. Oh, head up, man. You really worked hard this tournament. And it made me think, like, wait a minute, time out. This is 2020, yo. This is 2019. This is 2021. We're still doing this? And recently, there was literally in Spain with Vinicius Jr., there was problems with them saying bono, 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 calling him a monkey. There was times where literally in Napoli, they were having the same problems, where one of their star forwards who just won them the Scudetto literally was getting targeted racially. And it's making me think, wait a minute. People are still doing this. This is still type time they're on. And even players like Mario Balotelli, who always spoke about it and said, people are racist. People really are just awful human beings. They treat you like garbage. They expect you to be this flawless athlete. And it's these stereotypes. And it happens at the highest levels. And you'd be surprised, it also happens at the lower levels. Even when it came down to the draft, where they do all the tests beforehand, they're at the combine. In my head, I'm sitting there watching this. I'm like, they're literally measuring them, they're looking at them, they're making them run and see how fast they are. And granted, it's white, Spanish, black athletes, doesn't matter. But it's like the thing, it just looks funny because theoretically, most people who own sports teams in America are white owners. So it just made me think like, okay, these are their people that they want. They watch them run, jump, do all these different tactics, and then this. And it's just so interesting for me to see that. I'm like, this looks funny. And I'm not saying that it's inherently racist or that this or that. Granted, it's the best way to actually look and see what kind of athlete they are, et cetera, et cetera. But couldn't you also judge by watching game film? Like sometimes you can have someone who's super fast, super whatever, but not be the best actual player. So who cares? Something else that I noticed is that in the NFL especially, to be a black quarterback, he's a running back basically. What do you mean he's a running back? He's throwing the ball more than he is some of the other white counterparts who are running the ball just as much. So again, it's this weird boundary where it's like they're expecting them to be this system quarterback. He's probably not smart enough to understand this or this or this. Oh, this guy, my guy, he's a smart guy, he knows the playbook. And it's like, what do you mean he knows the playbook? Couldn't he also know the playbook even though he's black? Why is there this stereotype based upon their skin color or where they're from? And I guess for me, when I started noticing how often this happened, it made me look introspectively about my life. And I was thinking, okay, in my life, did I also go through these similar types of situations? I remember having a coach tell me, hey, why are you so confident? I mean, why am I so confident? Because I'm a talented player and I know what I'm doing. But then was he telling that to the white players in the team as well? And then it got me thinking, okay, maybe I'll let that go, let that rock. Then someone else tells me, he's like, hey, like if everyone was held to the same standard you were held to, we'd have an undefeated team. Then I'm like, okay, it's another thing where I'm like, it's a little uncomfortable, but you know what, whatever, I'm not gonna let it affect my flow. But then say I get in trouble or something goes wrong or I mess up in the game, I instantly get subbed out. Dang, I messed up. I put that on my chest. But then you watch this player that subs in for you who makes mistake after mistake after mistake, and we get scored on over and over, and then you're sitting there looking at the coach like, you subbed me out for less than what he just did 4 times in a row. Why did I get subbed out so quickly? Why am I not getting that second chance? Then when you go to the coaches meeting and you hear the words of, I know I give other players more chances than you. And then you start to wonder, wait a minute, what does that mean? And you're thinking, is it racism? And you don't want it to be, especially when you're a person of color, you're Egyptian, you're Muslim, you're all these different things than a white male. You're getting held to a higher standard, but people aren't even meeting half the standard you're meeting. So you have to make no mistakes to get even half of the playing time someone else is getting. And then this ruins your experience as an athlete. This ruins your experience as getting the time you deserve or getting the respect you deserve. And even when it came to disciplinary tactics, I remember watching a player do something insane, and then the next year they're supposed to be suspended for the first 2 games, but they weren't. But then the same thing happened to me, and then I was suspended for the first 2 games of the season. And in that same season, the coach had told me, you can't even apply to be a captain. What do you mean I can't apply? Isn't it like a team vote? It was so confusing to me because it made me realize that it's systemic, and it even happens at the collegiate level. So why would it not happen at an even higher level? And it made me realize that there is racism in sports. There is levels in the sport where people pick favorites. Obviously, especially when you get to high school or college, people always have these stories of, I was so good, but then the coach made me hate the game. Or when the booster club gets involved, mommy and daddy get to donate to the school or basically set up the booster so their son Timmy plays. Is that really fair? Are you really trying to win? Or are you just trying to make the mom and dad happy that are spending all the money to make sure you look good? And it's one of those things where you start to realize, is there racism in sports? Is it happening at lower levels and higher levels? Is there favoritism? And for me personally, I tend to see all these things that I just think, this sucks. Because again, like for me, sports is something, a way to express yourself. It's a way to be the best version of yourself. You grind, you want to be talented, work really hard. But when it comes to a cost of your mental health as well, where you have to work so much harder than everyone else to get less result, it really can take a toll. There was even a time where black athletes couldn't even compete against white athletes because it was seen as, nah, they're uncivilized, they can't play with them. But now look at it, how black athletes run the NBA, run the NFL, and it's true. They took over because, again, they're just better athletes. Sure, but historically, if you're looking at it systemically and racially, they were the ones who were doing all the hard work, the labor for generations and generations. So they are going to be stronger. They're mentally stronger. They're going to be tougher people. All they know is hard work. They're not soft. Their generations have been taught to work hard. It's the same thing when immigrants come from other countries to America. People in the Chinese cultures and Korean cultures, again, work really hard. So when they go to other places, they just work harder. And there's so many books that show that it matters culturally, not racially. So for example, within a culture, it's prescribed to do a lot of hard work. They're going to be better at math because they're people who won't give up when something gets tough. But the people that give up the fastest are the people that aren't the best at the math. So it goes to show that it's not just racial or the skin color or where you're from, but it's the culture that you hail from, the culture that your family prescribes for you. So then to me, when I started noticing this, I started thinking within sports, the reason why certain people work harder and grind harder and make it out the mud, there's always those success stories, is because of that pressure. It's because of that. So sometimes I tend to think, you know what? It's going to happen whether we like it or not. So the thing we can do is to rise above it. It's to do what we can do with the privilege that we do have. Because at the end of the day, all we can do is work hard, control what we can control, and hope for the better future. Thank you guys again for tuning in. And this is something that I am passionate about. I do care about it. And I do see that we can go into this a little deeper, but I want to know what you guys think as well. Have you guys dealt with racism in your sports systems in high school, college, or do you see it happening even in the professional level, even in different sports that I may not know as much, like golf or tennis? And does it happen there as well? I'm really curious, and I want to know what you think as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be sure to see you guys next week on another video where I talk about something, again, society, culture, and just something that's going on in the world. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be sure to be here.